When we think of the biggest NHL villain today, the torch, more recently, has seemingly been passed from Brad Marchand to Capitals forward Tom Wilson. And aside from tormenting opponents pretty much on a nightly basis, Wilson, over the years, has racked up his fair share of moments in which he's acted like a baby. In this video, we're going to go over a handful of times in which Tom Wilson has thrown a grown man's version of a tantrum on ice. And with that, here are 5 times that Tom Wilson acted like a baby. During the start of the Pittsburgh Penguins' back-to-back cup runs, the Washington Capitals, per usual, were a team that they had to go through en route to Lord Stanley. And it was during the opening game of the second round that things, unsurprisingly, became pretty physical between the two teams. This in turn resulted in the Capitals being forced to go on the penalty kill following a hit by Andrei Burakovsky on Matt Cullen. Wilson, who apparently thought Cullen was somehow manipulating the situation and getting hit in the numbers into the boards was suspect, began to protest, as you know, as a man-child is prone to do. As Wilson was making his way down ice, he decided to hone in on his best acting skills in order to do his best impression of his opponent, while indicating that Cullen should have been given an award for his performance. Accurate or not, especially considering Malkin did get an embellishment penalty later in the game, one has to admit the mockery does come across as a bit childish in my book. And the most recent moment on this list took place early this season against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now we all know what spearing is, what it looks like, and the severity of it. But during this altercation that took place during the remaining seconds of the contest, well, it didn't exactly bring Wilson to his knees. Anyways, during the last face-off of the game, Cernak, who had been battling with Wilson prior to, decided to try and provoke his opponent. So yes, stick between the legs is something to retaliate about, but it's how Wilson went about it that's pretty questionable. Anyways, instead of dropping the gloves like a man, Wilson decided to hack at Cernak's arm with his stick as his wires had clearly crossed. Both players engaged each other further before finally being restrained by the officials. Class. It's what the NHL, at least in prior years anyways, has been known for. The handshake line and pregame attire, amongst other things, has distinguished the league and given it more of an old school look compared to the other major sports leagues. Obviously, this is changing, but even still, class is something that Tom Wilson doesn't have a lot of. And the forward demonstrated just that during a regular season game last season against the New York Rangers. Shortly after the Rangers scored, in the remaining seconds of play in the Big Apple, it was Wilson who wasn't thrilled about the opponent's 5-2 lead. Therefore, Wilson decided that he was going to break up the party, and went after Brian Lindgren as he was celebrating with his teammates. This, as you would expect, sparked a brawl in front of the bench shortly before Wilson was escorted off the playing surface. Well, if you know anything about Tom Wilson and the shenanigans that took place between him and the New York Rangers, the last moment we covered doesn't even scratch the surface. During last May in NYC, things quickly spun out of control midway through the second period of play. As Pavel Buchnevich made the initial contact with the Capitals goaltender, Wilson, who saw the subtle bump from the forward as he was digging for the puck, apparently became incensed. And like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum, Wilson decided to use Buchnevich's head as his own personal punching bag. Well, obviously most of us know how this story ends, but even still, we've saved the final theatrics for the next and final moment on this list. So, after Artemi Panarin attempted to avenge his teammate by jumping on Wilson's back like a spider monkey, let's just say that whole plan by the bread man failed massively. But after having his way with Panarin, after tossing him around like a rag doll, Wilson wasn't finished, making the large majority of NHL fans despise him even more. Shortly after Panarin, who was injured during the incident, was able to gather himself as play was halted, Wilson, who was ushered into the penalty box, decided he wasn't finished, and in childlike fashion decided to flex while laughing at the opposing team as they were recovering from the onslaught. So yes, Tom Wilson thinks he's the Incredible Hulk apparently, from this impression at least.